Chevrolet Corvette is the longest-running nameplate in the sports car world, which is a unique feat worth respecting. From the elegant 1953 Corvette Roadster to today's space-age mid-engine C8 models, the Corvette has always been an excellent value for money. However, even though the Corvette's success story is paved with excellent vehicles, massive V8 power, and racing dominance, this automotive legend had its share of dark moments. It might seem strange today, but there was a time when the Corvette was underpowered, outdated, and slow, and its very existence was hanging by the thread. But as with any good Hollywood action hero, the Corvette managed to strike back, pull itself up by its bootstraps, and return stronger than ever, claiming its rightful place on the very top of the segment. Today, we're sharing the most crucial moments in Corvette history and the car that saved the breed, the iconic Corvette C4. You probably have heard about the Malaise Era, which describes the sharp drop in power and performance of American cars from the mid-70s to the early 80s. It was the time of tightening emissions and safety regulations, which killed the original muscle car segment, robbed big V8 engines of their power, and introduced dreadful 5-mile-per-hour bumpers that ruined the design. The American cars from the 70s were a far cry from their predecessors just a few years before, and the Chevrolet Corvette was one of the worst examples of this trend. The then-current Corvette C3 was introduced in 1968 with a sexy Coke bottle design, a lineup of powerful V8 engines, and a performance rivaling anything from Maranello. With affordable prices, it was the definitive sports car of the period, a successful racer and a favorite tool for numerous street racers. Riding on a superb performance and market dominance, the C3 entered the 70s at high speed. However, 10 years later, the Corvette was a joke. Once a very modern design was outdated and ruined with plastic bumpers and tacky spoilers. The latter chassis was ancient by sports car standards and basically dated from 1963 when the Corvette C2 was presented. The interior was old-looking, cramped, and ergonomically inefficient, but the biggest problem was under the hood. The top engine option in 1970 was a massive 454 LS7 big block V8 with 460 horsepower on tap. 10 years later, the biggest engine option was a choked 350 small block V8 with a measly 190 horsepower. Corvette enthusiasts were outraged but couldn't do anything about it, and rumors of Corvette's demise started circling the automotive community. Fortunately, Corvette fans weren't the only group frustrated with this crisis. A large group of Chevrolet's engineers demanded that the Corvette be saved and that GM must not abandon this iconic name. However, securing the board's support was very hard, especially after very expensive and failed attempts to introduce the Wankel-powered Corvette model in the 70s. From this perspective, it was a sound decision to kill that project, but it left the Corvette without proper replacement and the funding for improvement. In 1975, the father of Corvette, Zora Arkus Duntiv, retired from GM, which left this model without one of its biggest promoters. However, the Corvette team got a new lead designer and engineer with the talented David McClellan and Jeremy Palmer, replacing Duntiv as the keepers of the Corvette flame. The first thing was to secure funding for a completely new Corvette generation and find support in the company. Fighting massive GM bureaucracy proved a significant task, and McClellan and Palmer needed almost 2 years to get the approval for a brand new Corvette and gather a team of people they could trust. McClellan and Palmer spent countless hours analyzing competitors from Europe and Japan and realized that to make a world-class sports car, they need to start from the clear sheet and forget anything from the old C3 Corvette. Even though the initial design cues were laid in late 1978 and Corvette C4 recognizable lines were quickly formed, the rest of the car was under development for a significant amount of time. McClellan insisted on unique steel construction called unframe. Light years more advanced than previously used ladder-type chassis, it was a steel frame with strong sides and a roll bar integrated into the construction. It wasn't a unibody patent since none of the body panels helped structural rigidity. Still, it had a very advanced chassis, which was strong and light and proved significant passenger construction. It was expensive to develop, but it gave the C4 immense potential shown in initial testing. The new chassis also helped shred a few inches from the length of the car and improved interior space. The all-new Corvette abandoned the coil spring suspension of the previous generations. It used simple but very effective transverse leaf springs, which were lighter than the conventional solution and had an anti-roll effect connecting two wheels in the same axle, improving the steering and providing a more precise feel. McClellan engineered aluminum suspension components and bigger brakes, which completed the hardware. From the start, the Corvette C4 was envisioned as a sports car with perfect handling, and the engineering team spent countless hours shaving any unnecessary weight and giving the vehicle perfect 50-50 weight distribution, even without the transaxle gearbox. As mentioned, the primary lines of the Corvette C4 were laid in the late 70s and slightly improved before production. However, the Corvette team even wholly changed the material of the body. The fiberglass was the material of the choice from 1953, but for Corvette C4, the molding plastic was used. It wasn't just more durable, but more robust and a tiny bit lighter than the old model. As a chief designer, Palmer was not keen on just making a new and exciting shape. One of the main aspects was to create a new Corvette that was as aerodynamically efficient as possible. After thorough testing in the wind tunnel, the final product had a fantastic 0.34 CW, which enhanced the top speed and improved economy while reducing the wind noise. The early 80s almost finished the all-new Corvette C4, but GM deliberately delayed the introduction. Due to many new and revolutionary components and product techniques, Chevrolet wanted to be sure that the production was up to standard and that once the C4 started rolling off the assembly lines, the cars would be top-notch, dependable machines. However, implementing new solutions proved difficult, and the official introduction was moved several times. The desperately outdated Corvette C3 was kept in production until 1982, but the successor wasn't ready for the 1983 model year. For the first time in history, the Corvette was absent from Chevrolet's model lineup for 1983, while engineers and technicians sorted various pre-production issues. Interestingly, although there wasn't a 1983 Corvette, Chevrolet actually built 43 examples for tasting purposes and destroyed all but one, which now resides in the Corvette National Museum near the Corvette factory in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Finally, in January 1984, the first C4s were delivered to eager customers and motoring journalists. Even though the existence of the Corvette C4 wasn't a surprise, the surprise was just how good and accomplished the car was. Forget about American car prejudices, bulky machines with wobbly suspensions. The C4 was sharp, composed, fast, and very technically advanced. The C4 amazed the automotive public with how new it was with its fresh but unmistakably Corvette design, new features, superb handling, and braking. Even though the 5.7-liter V8 L83 engine wasn't all that new, it worked well with 205 horsepower. In 1985, the L98 engine was introduced with 245 horsepower, which made it more powerful than the competitors. And with 5.5 seconds to 60 miles per hour and 150 miles per hour top speed, it was faster too. Once again, the Corvette came as a target top model with characteristic rear glass but improved trunk space. One of the coolest features of the C4 was its interior. More spacious than the outgoing model, it was well equipped with advanced adaptive digital dash and fantastic technology for mid-80s standards. The digital dash was very comprehensive and showed all relevant information, and compared to the ones used in other sports cars, it was a proper sci-fi feature. Despite all the rave reviews, magazine stats, significant sales jumps, and its substantial price of $23,000, the Corvette C4 had one weak point: manual transmission. In order to make it more efficient, Chevrolet decided to install a unique 4+3 Doug Nash manual. It was a classic 4-speed, but with 3 overdrive gears. It meant you could switch to overdrive in any forward gear, lower the revs, and save fuel. It was a great idea on paper, but lacked refinement and precision in real life, and wasn't very popular with the customers. The traditional automatic transmission was a more favorable option despite being a tad slower. The market responded very favorably to the new model, and once again, the Corvette was a top seller, beating the Porsche 911 in annual sales on the street. In 1986, Chevrolet decided to widen the appeal of the C4, introducing the first convertible model since 1974. It proved to be a popular choice with the same performance as the coupe model. Since the C4 had excellent construction, its racing career exploded. First in the SCCA championships, Fighting the same cars were its sale competitors. The Corvette C4 did so well that it was outlawed by the end of the season. Winning almost 90% of all races, SCCA decided to ban the C4 from racing and introduced a separate Corvette series, a cup championship with fierce on-track battles, often more interesting than the SCCA Cup itself. During the rest of the 80s, Chevrolet gradually improved the C4, offering more equipment and slightly more power. Still, in 1992, it introduced a complete redesign, which launched the C4 into the 90s at full power. This redesign included a front and rear end, a completely new interior, but a new LT1 engine and a proper 6-speed manual transmission. The 1992 to 1996 Corvette was a much more refined, faster, and capable model with better features, more comfort, and potential. Even though the 300 horsepower 5.7-liter LT1 V8 was anything but slow, the Corvette team wanted more. Accomplished as it was, the C4 chassis architecture was designed to withstand much more power than it originally had. McClellan knew that when C4 achieved market success and the bean counters in GM were satisfied, he would ask for a budget for the project of the ultimate Corvette. In the late 80s, GM acquired Lotus, which was well known for its engineering department. McClellan wanted a C4 that could beat a supercar and wanted to start from the engine. The venerable 5.7-liter V8 would be retained. Lotus completely re-engineered 32-valve cylinder heads, steering, and suspension setup, initially turning the standard C4 into a supercar-beating beast with 375 horsepower and 405 horsepower in later models. With 0 to 60 mph time of just over 4 seconds and 180 mph top speed, the C4 ZR-1 was brutally fast. But it had two problems. One looked the same as the standard C4, although it was much wider and used different tires. Second, it had an MSRP of over $60,000, which was almost double what the standard C4 sold for. Stealth styling and high price kept the production low despite the stellar performance. Produced from 1990 to 1995, Chevrolet sold just under 7,000 examples. The Corvette C4 was discontinued in 1996 after a full 12 years on the scene. During that period, Chevrolet produced an excellent 350,000 examples, making it one of the most successful sports cars on the planet. But the competent 0 to 60 mph times and production figures don't do justice to this fantastic car. The Corvette C4 wasn't just a sales success. It single-handedly saved the Corvette as a model from demise in the early 80s. In fact, the chassis was so good that it was used in 3 subsequent generations with minimal changes and finally was discontinued in 2019 when the Corvette switched to mid-engine architecture. The C4 marks Chevrolet's return to the top of the sports car class and is the ultimate proof that Corvette's philosophy is superb. But what is even more fascinating is that this legendary machine is still exciting, affordable, and fast today, inspiring a brand new generation of enthusiasts who weren't even born when the C4 was introduced. This is the perfect proof of successful design and everlasting appeal.